A top defense executive has a clear message for Europe. The continent needs 10 more years to restock its arms and ammunition. What does that mean about or on rallying global defense stocks, and how is rising geopolitical uncertainty boosting defense firms? This next report explains.
Geopolitical tensions loom large over the world. The Russia-Ukraine war has raised the stakes for Europe. The Israel-Hamas war threatens to disrupt West Asia. Meanwhile, tensions over Taiwan could expand into a full-fledged war. Global defense spending rose by 9% to reach $2.2 trillion last year. That was the steepest rise in spending in the last 3 decades. The West has raised its defense spending amid fears of a Russian aggression. According to reports, the European Union spent over $295 billion last year. The U.S. defense budget, on the other hand, has neared the $1 trillion mark. The biggest beneficiary of the spending surge have been global defense companies. The order books of the biggest defense firms have risen about 10% since 2022. Shares of European defense firms in particular surged dramatically in 2023. Europe's Stocks Aerospace and Defense Index rose by over 50% last year. U.S. defense firms too had their highs in 2023, but they paled in comparison to their European counterparts. Overall, the global benchmark for defense stocks rose by about 25% in 2023. Asian defense stocks too rose last year. Shares of South Korea's Hanwha Aerospace rose 69.2%, while Japan's Mitsubishi Heavy surged 57.5%. In India, all defense stocks have given a minimum of double-digit return in the current fiscal year. The government's focus on localization and capital expenditure have helped India's defense stocks. U.S. firms like Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, and Northrop Grumman have already raised their 2024 outlook. In fact, Wall Street analysts predict their shares may rise by 5 to 7% in 2024. With Europe looking to rearm itself and geopolitical tensions prevailing elsewhere, experts suggest that the global defense sector is likely to record double-digit growth in the coming years. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Cognosis Advisory Limited is now joining us live from Montevideo, Uruguay. Dr. Freris, welcome to the broadcast.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Global defense stocks have rallied in the last 1 year. How long do you think this rally will continue?
It's going to continue for a very long time, meaning at least for the next year, if not for the next 2 to 3 years, for a very simple reason. Defense spending is not a one-off procedure. It is effectively a continuous procedure, meaning that once defense budgets have been increased, it's very difficult to reverse them or cut them. I'm not saying that defense spending cannot be cut, but it is a long-term process. And unfortunately, as long as the tensions in Ukraine, and in particular now in Israel and the Arab world continue, then the amount of spending that is going to take place is going to carry on rising. I don't want to gloat over that because a lot of people may find the idea of making money out of buying stocks and shares of arms companies is perhaps immoral. I definitely don't, okay? But I have to acknowledge that this is the case. It is a tricky issue.
Dr. Freris, European defense stocks have performed much better than U.S. defense firms. What's the reason behind this?
Well, there are 3 things to consider. First, of course, the defense sector in the States is all part of the S&P, and it's part of the overall stock market. So the companies themselves cannot outperform significantly what the rest of the market is doing. And of course, at the time, there was pressure of interest rates. There was, let's say, the expectations were not particularly bright. But compared to what has happened to Europe, there was absolutely virtually no comparison, because the large increase in spending is going to take place in Europe and Germany in particular. And that's why, for example, one of the best performing stocks, and this is not a recommendation, this is simply an observation, the Rheinmetall stock in Germany is a massive outperformer of any other simple stock, because Germany is significantly underspending its defense. So European stocks simply reflected what is the expectation out of defense spending in Europe and the European Union in particular.
Dr. Freris, finally, do you see any downside to the otherwise bright outlook for global defense stocks going forward?
The stock world, in other words, if I was to look at the minor and major stock companies across the world, they number something like between 50 and 80. And of course, not all of them are outperforming, not all of them are making a significant amount of money. So it would be stupid to say that just because the outlook for the defense sector is good, it's good for every single company. However, the big however is whichever way you turn, more money is being spent. Japan is spending quite a lot more than it has been spending already. South Korea will do likewise. Australia is building an enormous nuclear submarine fleet in order to protect its routes in the Pacific. And I'm just giving you random numbers. The same thing, of course, is happening with India. India is possibly the third biggest consumer of defense goods. And therefore, the outlook continues to be, I'm sorry to say, very bright. I don't say sorry, but as I said, it is a moral issue here, and I don't want to gloat. But my business is not to pass judgment. I'm a strong defender of spending on defense.
All right. Well put. I've been talking to Dr. Andrew Freris, who's the CEO of Ecognosis Advisory Limited, live from Montevideo, Uruguay. Dr. Andrew, thank you very much for talking to WION World is One today.
It's a pleasure.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.